All right, so we're going to get started. Welcome everyone again to the South Jersey Export Webinar Series. Today we are in Camden County for Introduction to Exporting. This is the fourth webinar stop of our series, and we're delighted to have you all join us either live or watching this recording. Bill, if you can please advance the slide. First, we would like to, of course, welcome everyone to this webinar, but we would like to specifically thank our valuable local partners, many of which are on this webinar today. We would like to thank the Camden County Regional Chamber of Commerce, the Camden Business Association, the Latin American Economic Development Association, the Runnymede Chamber of Commerce, and of course, the Chamber of Commerce of Southern New Jersey. We are going to kick things off with a quick survey. So you should see a poll pop up entitled Welcome Survey. There are just 3 quick questions. We just want to get a feel of who is in the room, the types of businesses that are being represented today. So the first question is asking about your industry. What kind of business are you in? The second question is asking if you have ever sold a service or product to a buyer outside of the United States. Have you ever exported? And then the last question is asking if you are actively marketing your company internationally. Are you currently seeking international buyers? So it looks like we've got some responses already. I'm going to give it a couple more moments. The survey just opened up. I'm going to wait till we get to about half, if possible. All right, so it looks like we have a lot of new to export folks here today. Service-based and other. Looks like there's an accommodation and food service. And if you have responded other, or actually anyone that has responded, feel free to put in the chat. You should be able to send a message to the hosts and panelists. Please let us know a little bit more about your specific business. So if you're a service-based business, what kind of service do you specialize in? If you selected other, we'd love to know any additional information so that we can best cater our examples throughout today's presentation to our audience. Just going to leave the survey open up for a moment more. Okay, it looks like we have someone that has exported. That's great, a mixed group today. And as mentioned, please feel free to send a message to the hosts and panelists if you had selected other or service-based business to tell us a little bit more about your company. Just generally, is it, what kind of services? Is this professional services, accounting services, etc.? All right. So with that, we're going to end the poll. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. And I am going to introduce my colleague, Jean Chang, an international business advocate with the state of New Jersey. Jean has decades of experience in both the public and private sectors in international trade. And I'm very happy to pass over the mic to Jean to kick us off today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jean Chang. It is my pleasure to join today's webinar and to tell you a little bit about the New Jersey Business Action Center. Now, Sophie and I both work in the Business Action Center. Our office's manager, William Spear, who I believe is also on this session, whom you will get to meet at the end of the webinar. We all work in the Business Action Center. This is a division within the New Jersey Department of State. Our mission is to provide technical assistance and resources, acting as advocates and mentors to help New Jersey businesses with a special focus on small, medium, and medium-sized enterprises. We envision all stakeholders from the business side and the government side working together to utilize available resources to create a flourishing business community in the Garden State. Next slide, please. Now, you see a triangle. In the center of the triangle, there's the Business Action Center. Connect, collaborate, and communicate. That's what we do. We are under the leadership of Lieutenant Governor, who is also the Secretary of State, Tahisha Wei, and our Executive Director, Melanie Willoughby. We connect business with resources, with government agencies, and facilitate B2B connections. We collaborate with our partners locally, regionally, at the state level, at the federal level, and even with foreign entities. We communicate information and resources to New Jersey companies, such as what we're doing right now in today's webinar. May I have the next slides, please? This is a relatively recent picture of our team. In the center, you can see Lieutenant Governor and Secretary Wei and Executive Director Willoughby. We are a diversified team with multi-talents, with one thing in common. We're all very passionate about helping companies doing and growing business in New Jersey. May I have the next slide, please? First, I'd like to emphasize that all of the services provided by the New Jersey Business Action Center are free and confidential. Business proprietary information will never be shared outside of our organization without your consent. There are 5 divisions within the Business Action Center. The first one is the Office of Business Advocacy. They tend to focus more on the domestic side, connecting businesses to available financing and grant opportunities, working with a Department of Environmental Protection, as well as the Department of Community Affairs to expedite the permitting process, working with Department of Labor to assist your staffing needs, working with the Board of Public Utilities on energy programs. They also provide site selection services if your company is looking for new locations or to move to a new location. The second office is our office, Export Promotion Office. Sophie and I are both in the office, and the office is led by William Spear. In short, our office helps New Jersey companies to sell products and services overseas, to increase the company's revenue, and to create more jobs in New Jersey. We will certainly describe our services and programs in more details in the following few slides. The third one is called the Small Business Advocacy Office. And this office is led by Don Newman, whom you may know. He has a team of people forming the state business help desk through a call center and a chat system. They are the first stop shop for business. If you don't know where to start, where to go to, call the 800 Jersey 7 number. Next one is the Planning Advocacy Office. They work with municipalities, multi-government agencies, and legislators to manage the state development and redevelopment plan. Finally, the relatively new division called Cannabis Training Academy. They help entrepreneurs to start their business and to comply with rules, laws, and regulation in this fairly new industry. Next slide, please. Thank you. You can see from the background of this slide that you may encounter all kinds of questions while doing business in New Jersey. Whenever you have a question, whether it's big or small, come to the Business Action Center. We will engage appropriate resources and provide you with a solution. Next, please. So once again, our services are free and confidential. We respond promptly with high degree of accuracy. If there's one thing I would like to have you take away from this seminar is to please jot down, take a note of this very easy to remember number, 800 Jersey 7. If you don't know who to contact in the state, please call this number to talk, and you will talk to a real person or chat with the Business Action Help Desk. You will get your answers right away or be connected to the right people. Now, the last link on this slide provides lots of good, useful resource information about doing business in New Jersey. So I encourage you to take your time to browse through this site. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about the second office, our office, the Office of Export Promotion. And before I talked about the OEP, allow me to provide a background picture about New Jersey's export. Last year, New Jersey exported $43 billion of goods, ranking number 14 among all states. The products exported ranges from industrial machinery, specialty chemical, medical devices, to even soaps and candles. By the way, for your information, New Jersey's top 5 exporting countries are Canada, Mexico, Japan, China, and Germany. Okay, next slide, please. So this is what we do. Export assistance, export advocacy, and managing the foreign trade zone. If you are a new to export company, we show you how to plan and start to export overseas. If you are an existing exporter, we show you how to expand your markets and market share. Now, Sophie has a series of slides later, providing step-by-step advice. On the export advocacy side, while exporting, if you encounter trade barriers, such as export license issues or intellectual property protection issues, we work with our partners at the state level, at the federal level, or foreign government representatives at their consulates in New York, Newark, or Philadelphia to help you resolve the issue. Now, the last function, foreign trade zone. Our office is the grantee of the foreign trade zone number 44, which is the largest FTZ in our state, with its main campus in Mount Olive, but with subdivisions spread out elsewhere in New Jersey. So the foreign trade zone is a complex topic that deserves a separate discussion. But I want to give you the conceptual idea. At the high level, it works like this. If a company imports components from overseas into the FTZ, it is duty-free. You don't pay tariffs. There's no tariff. Within the FTZ, you can do warehousing, processing, packaging, manufacturing, and then with the finished product, if you want to re-export some of the products out of the country, let's say to Canada or Mexico or Europe, again, there's no tariff, there's no duty. And if you want to sell some of the remaining goods to the US domestic market, you may pay a lower tariff because of the value-added work in the FTZ that put you in a different tax category. So at this point, I would like to invite Sophie back to start a series of intro to exporting with a lot more details. Sophie, please.
Thank you so much, Jean. Bill, if we can advance the next slide. So today, of course, the topic at hand is Introduction to Exporting. So you're probably here because you are a business that is interested in learning how to sell internationally. This presentation is geared towards new to export companies, and it looks like that's the majority of the folks on this call today. It looks like we had one person that has exported in the past, but nonetheless, these resources are also applicable as you grow and have been able to sell into an international market and are looking to expand and are at the market expansion level. So these resources, which will be shared in the follow-up email, highly recommend that you bookmark them and utilize them as you grow your business through exporting. Next slide, please. The first slide that I want to go over is giving you a couple of reasons why you should be here if you didn't have those reasons already. So the first and foremost, exporting is a way to increase your sales by tapping into additional markets. So one of the very well-known figures is that over 95% of consumers reside outside of the United States, which is, a great fact to know. But even more importantly, over 2/3 of the buying power is outside of the United States. So not just a high number of prospective consumers, but consumers that have the ability to purchase, the ability and the interest in purchasing U.S. goods and services. Exporting can be a viable way to smooth your domestic business cycles during lulls, and to just add additional markets to diversify your risk, and in addition, provide you with more insight into consumer preferences throughout the global market. It can also help you increase the valuation of your business, whether or not you are intending to sell your business. It'll also help you utilize the full capacity of the production, sales, and admin systems that you have put in place and have invested in and have got up and running. You might as well use them at their full capacity. So this is really an opportunity for companies to not just limit themselves to selling local to the domestic market, but to really look at proactively look at the international markets as another place to sell their U.S. made goods and services. Next slide, please. Today's presentation will go over first a export readiness self-assessment, in which we will pose different questions. I'll offer some insight, but that export readiness self-assessment will also be sent in a follow-up email, and we will go over that readiness self-assessment with any companies that are interested in doing so on a separate follow-up call. So that is something that we are happy to do. Management commitment to exporting, it all starts with commitment from the top. We'll talk about trade barriers and trade opportunities, including both tariff and non-tariff trade barriers and various opportunities that exist to help facilitate trade. Then we will discuss export plan development and dive into some international market research. We will go over both resources for service-based exports, which I know there are a couple in attendance today and perhaps watching this recording. And then we will also go over product-based international market research and look at a food manufacturing case study of a fictitious business that Jean and I have put together for the purposes of this presentation, Pine Hill Hot Honey. And then we'll wrap things up with questions and answers, and then we'll discuss next steps. But if you do have questions throughout today, please do send them into either the Q&A or you can send them to the hosts and panelists in the webinar chat. And if we are able to answer them in the moment, and if it's a clarifying question, we're happy to do so. If it's something that we need a little bit more time for, we will hold it till the Q&A section. Next slide, please. We are going to kick things off with the export readiness self-assessment. So this is a series of questions that are used to help you as a business owner interested in exporting to determine where are you at in your journey. Are you prepared to get started in exporting? Next slide, please. The first question asks, are you already selling domestically, and have you already experienced some level of success selling domestically, selling locally? This is a crucial piece to have prior to looking at international markets. Most companies that are looking to sell abroad should have at least 1 year in business prior to looking at expanding internationally, because you don't want to try to bite off more than you can chew, so to say. You want to be able to focus your efforts. And even though we are saying global, selling globally, selling internationally, we are talking about specific markets internationally that are a good fit for your product or service. And we'll talk more about how to identify those specific markets later, but not, just a general selling to the world. We want to absolutely focus in on the markets that make sense. And it's easiest to do that when you already have your profit margins, you already have your administrative processes, you already have the business domestically running and are able to expand. So exporting is not going to be the quick fix that gets your company out of the red. You want to look at exporting as a way to strategically grow your business over time, and look at it as a way to grow your team here domestically in order to fulfill the demand that you will see from abroad. So the second question asks about management commitment to developing your export market. So without management's commitment and interest in both their time and resources, it would be very difficult to move any plan forward in general. We are going to be discussing this. Jean will be discussing this at length later on in this presentation, but we wanted to include that first because this is something that you need to all be on the same page. If you are a multi-member LLC, you want to make sure that everyone is on board with this expansion. And then additionally, does the company have an export business plan, which we will also discuss today? We will discuss general topics within an export business plan, as well as go over a sample outline of an export plan, because you are not going to be able to measure your progress without defined goals and strategies. Number 3 is asking, do you have the means to take on additional demand from international markets? So once we've done our research, done our due diligence, looked at the potential viable markets, and then have started to look to go after those markets, when those buyers are then expressing interest, do you have the ability to follow through on those sales? The question is, do you have the sufficient production capacity domestically to meet that uptick in orders? And do you have financing available if that is needed? It's always a best practice to have financing in set up prior to when you need it. So when you have assets, when you have when you have collateral, that's the time to talk to your banker. Let them know, I'm looking into getting into exporting. I'm looking at these specific markets. I'm working with, the state. I'm working with our federal partners, et cetera. And I want to make sure that I have the ability to meet the demand. And if your bank is an SBA lender, the SBA also has export loan products that can be beneficial. And some of them can be used for both domestic and international sales with manufacturing in the US. Next slide, please. Similarly to the last question, looking at financial resources, but this is more focused to the follow-up. So not only creating the product, selling it, shipping it, but you need to be able to have that high level of customer follow-up that has built you the success you've experienced domestically. So make sure that you have the financial resources to hire the personnel that is needed to support the expansion, that is also needed for the marketing, the advertising, etc. because you will need, our example that we like to use is someone calls you on Thanksgiving Day and is asking for, they need assistance. They're a customer. You need to provide them with that high level of customer service, regardless of the domestic holiday that it may fall on. The next question deals with not only, can you please go back? Just back 2 slides. All right, I get the hint. I am rambling. So the intellectual property protection, we always want to highlight that U.S. Intellectual property protection does not afford any protection abroad, and you would need to apply for those specific rights in the country that you're interested in. And the lifespan of those IP protections will vary, and each country has its own copyright laws. So the U.S. copyright laws are only going to protect your intellectual property here in the United States and its territories. Does your company have the capabilities to adjust when needed? So looking at modification of ingredients, product packaging. So you need to be able to adapt to meet the needs, preferences of your foreign buyers, their expectations. So colors, symbols, icons may carry or may hold different meanings in different markets, and making sure that you are aware and you are being culturally savvy of the local demands, so that you can not only attract buyers, but survive the competition from domestic sellers. Next slide, please. All right. Of course, you want to make sure that your product, if you are selling a product and not a service, is able to reach your intended buyer. So one of the resources that can help you with this is a certified customs broker or a intermediary, such as a freight forwarder. But at the end of the day, you want to know about how you are going to get your product to your buyer and what that landed cost, what that total cost will be for the shipments, the duty, any additional fees, so that you know that you are pricing your product accordingly, so that you are not losing money. And of course, you want to make sure that your product is not held up in customs. So that's why it is important to ensure that typically the freight forwarder, they may not deal with the customs clearance unless they have specifically mentioned that they have a certified customs broker. For the export payment methods, of course, you want to ensure that you are paid for the goods that you are providing or the service. So one of the ways that is done in international trade is a letter of credit, which is a guarantee in the form of a letter from one bank to another that they will pay the specified amount in the specified circumstance. But you want to look at there are other options for international payment, but making sure that you have that sorted out on the front end. And then lastly, does your company understand U.S. export controls and compliance? So export licenses. Many people ask, does my product require an export license? Most products do not require an export license. Of course, there are exceptions, namely within the munitions or any kind of dual use item that can be used for both civilian and military purposes. But in addition, there are certain requirements that U.S. exporters are held to, that they cannot sell to barred individuals, entities, or organizations or countries. So there are resources that we are happy to share. We are here to support if you are in a situation where you're not sure about whether you are able to sell to a certain buyer, entity, etc. And another item I will bring up, because this is very topical, is to also be aware of scams. So this is, it's important to conduct your due diligence. Our office works with both local partners and partners abroad to ensure that New Jersey companies are able to sell into international markets with confidence and all of the information that they need to be successful. So please, if you receive an inquiry and you are not sure, please reach out. We are happy to assist you. That is something that has been very recent over the past few days that is top of mind and is always important to stay vigilant. Next slide, please. So I just threw a lot of information at you, these 9 questions. This is not meant to dissuade you, but rather to provide you with a full understanding of all of the different considerations at a high level. And you are not alone in this process. The Office of Export Promotion is here to walk with you step by step. I've worked with companies on their export plans, and I'm happy to, we are happy to be a resource to you and to be with you on this journey. One of the things that we will need from you, which Jean will talk about now, is the management commitment to exporting. You need to have a long-term commitment to seeing this through. So I'm going to pass it over to Jean to briefly discuss this and some of the additional trade barriers and trade opportunities. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Sophie. Management commitment is absolutely an essential element to have a successful export business. I cannot overemphasize the importance of this element. Next slides, please. I have worked with New Jersey companies starting to export. In many cases, their export initiative started with a sales team who were anxious to increase their revenue. However, it would not succeed or sustain unless they gain long-term commitment and support from their top management. So the CEO and the entire leadership team must buy in and integrate exporting into the company's core business strategy, not as an add-on or on an ad hoc basis. You also need to keep your key partners updated. For example, lining up bankers who understand international business in case you need export financing and or a working capital loan. You need to have attorneys and supply chain partners who understand international laws and practices and international logistics. Next slide, please. So, trade barriers and trade opportunities are additional factors to be considered in planning and executing your export initiatives. It will impact your sales strategy and cost analysis. Next one, please. Okay. The word tariff seems to be a hot topic recently and can be a trade barrier for international markets you would like to get into. Different countries have different trade barriers that might discourage you from selling there. Some are tariff related, others are not associated with tariffs. The slides after this one will show some examples in each category. So you really need to do your due diligence in your research to understand the impact of these trade barriers. The flip side is the trade opportunities. One example is the free trade agreement, which can benefit your export. I have worked with a company and they happen to be in the Camden County. They took advantage of the US-Australia free trade agreement and made a multiple $million sales of their radio frequency equipment to the Australian naval ships. So the free trade agreement not only allowed duty-free importation, but also permitted foreign companies selling to Australian government. Next. So this list can change for different markets at different times with different administrations and need to be watched carefully and folded into the cost and risk analysis in your export plan. If you have a specific trade barrier issue, talk to us. We will work with our partners to help. I would like to share 2 export advocacy examples. One example was a winery company in South Jersey who shipped blueberry wines to Taiwan, but got stuck at the arrival port due to misinterpretation of the custom clearance rules there. So William Spears, Bill and I worked with the US Commerce rep in Taiwan and the Taiwanese Commercial Council in New York to facilitate their custom clearance. That has significantly reduced the penalty paid for the daily storage fee. Another example was a precision glass manufacturer, also in South Jersey. We worked with our US Department of Commerce and US Department of Defense partners in Washington to facilitate their export license so that they could legally sell products to the foreign country for medical equipment application. That was also a multi-million-dollar sale. Next, please. So at this point, I would like to, before I invite Sophie back, you see some examples of the trade agreements. The trade agreements can be managed by various entities depending upon their scope and nature. The U.S. Office of the Trade Representative, USTR, plays a key role in administering U.S. trade agreements. Other involved parties can also include the International Trade Administration, ITA, within the U.S. Department of Commerce, and the U.S. Custom and Border Protection Unit. Now, I would like to invite Sophie back to show you how to consider these and many other factors to build a solid export plan. Sophie, again.
Thank you very much, Jean. So next slide, please. Now that we have gone over the importance of management consideration and a bit about different considerations in both barriers and opportunities in markets, it's time to jump in and look at the key concepts of an export plan so that you can get started on your journey. First, the product or service, looking at the description of whatever it is that you are selling. This slide looks very similar, I'm sure, to many of you as that of those key points that you included on your business plan. Think of this as a different version of your business plan, but adapted to the export market of interest, the specific export market of interest. Just like you are not selling to every consumer in the United States, you are not selling to every consumer outside of the United States. So looking at, of course, we talked about financial capacity. We looked at some considerations for your promotions and advertising. You want to look at your team and see what kind of experience they have related to international trade, but also any additional skills or lived experiences that may be valuable for you in specific markets, linguistic skills, etc. Looking at additional personnel that you may need to hire and writing that down of kind of a plan of what kind of additional hires you will need and at what point. Any management issues, who will be in charge of what aspect of this side of the business. We talked about the landed cost or the total cost of the of shipping your product to your foreign buyer and looking at that in your pricing consideration. So perhaps it would not be viable to sell a certain quantity of your product. Maybe it only makes sense in a certain package, or if you have some kind of different promotion for your international buyers. And then for production capacity, making sure that you are speaking with your banker, you're speaking if you're working with a co-packer, or if you are not manufacturing in-house, making sure that you have that ability to increase the frequency, because perhaps you may need to outgrow your co-packer and look at obtaining in-house manufacturing. And that is also something that Jean mentioned. We are also at the Business Action Center. We're home to the Office of Business Advocacy, and the Office of Business Advocacy assists in site selection and navigating state government resources, and looking at all of the different ways that New Jersey can help companies, not just in real estate and in manufacturing, but if you're looking at other issues that are coming up as you're growing domestically, they are going to be a key contact for you as you grow. And just want to last highlight the importance of the financial capacity and looking at all of your different options. And I'm going to again mention the SBA does have export specific loan products and export lines of credit that can help you achieve this. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the topics may look familiar to those. Hopefully all of you have worked on getting your business plan together. And as we know, the business plan is not something that you write and put on the shelf. It is a living, breathing document, and it is the same for your export plan. The export plan is a dynamic document that needs to be updated in order to maintain relevancy and usefulness for you and your team. So it is a way to organize your thoughts and, of course, identify some of the barriers we talked about, both tariff and non-tariff, and also to look at what may seem like the best market, but then looking, going down a few layers and seeing, is this actually going to be viable for my product at this time? And the process of researching will help you decide which markets may or may not be feasible. And we recommend start with 3 at a maximum. So perhaps you only want to look at one market to start off, or 2 markets. That's absolutely fine. But if you try to limit it to maximum of 3 international markets, so that you're not trying to look at too many different as we discussed, copyright laws change, the import regulations, etc. Everything's going to be a different set of rules. So limit yourself and try to focus on just a couple solid international markets that you feel you would be successful in. Next slide, please. So this is the sample export plan outline. As discussed, the management commitment is the first and most important piece of the puzzle. So that is why the export policy commitment statement is first. Looking at, I want to highlight a couple of pieces in here. Products that qualify under FTAs, or the free trade agreements that Jean mentioned. So those free trade agreements are negotiated by the U.S. Trade Representative Office. And the export control compliance is going to be directly related to the classification of your product. So we will look momentarily when we go through different international marketing research tools, how commodities are classified, and the classification that will be used for both domestic and international use. The distribution methods. So perhaps you want to be working with you want to sell directly B2B, or you're working with an agent or a distributor, figuring out what is the best fit for your company. As mentioned, establishing goals so that you know when you have reached certain milestones. For the freight costs, logistics included, and making sure that you are aware of all of the different costs so that you are not pricing yourself too low and incurring more costs than otherwise planned. Next slide, please. The export budget is where you are going to include all of the backing up all of the narrative pieces in the beginning part of your export plan. So just like your business plan with your narrative, and then followed by the financials that is going to show the bankers this is how this company is going to pay back the loan. You want to show this is how I'm going to make this plan possible in dollars and cents. So looking at all of the different costs that you are going to that you are going to accrue, whether it's travel or website enhancements, making sure that your international buyers are able to navigate through your website with ease. Trade show visits, getting in front of buyers, brokers, and distributors, giving yourself a timeline for implementation. And then we cannot stress enough the importance of background facts and statistics on the markets of interest, which is where we're going to jump to next with international market research. Next slide. We are going to first discuss some general tools that are going to be applicable to all people that are interested in exporting, whether you have a service-based business or product-based business. And then we will kind of break it into service-based and then product-based. Next slide, please. One of the first resources that we want to recommend is the U.S. Census Schedule B Commodity Data and Search Tool. This would be for product-based businesses, and as well as the second resource, the U.S. Census Bureau Global Market Finder. If you are a product-based business interested in exporting, I highly recommend bookmarking both of these links. Again, they will be sent in the follow-up email. If you are a service-based business, you are going to want to bookmark the third one, the BEA, the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Their interactive data application is going to give you a wealth of information on where U.S. services are being sold and at what quantities. And then finally, the country commercial guides are an incredible resource for everyone looking at exporting. This is going to give you information on the specific climate, business climate within that market. And we're going to review one today. Next slide, please. This is the BEA, or the Bureau of Economic Analysis, their interactive data application. So next slide, please. Just going through how to access. So first, you're going to go to the international data section of the menu, and then you're going to look at the international services. Next slide, please. From there, you will select interactive data tables. Next slide. And then you will select international services. Next slide. And that'll bring you to this menu where you can select from different tables. The one that we have highlighted is table 2.2, U.S. trade and services by type of service. So that's going to be by your industry and by country or affiliation. So to what country is receiving the U.S. export of the service. And there are also other helpful tables, but one of the big resources that I recommend before jumping into the tables is looking at the BEA's video where they overview how to utilize their interactive data tables. So once you go to the bea.gov/iTable, there is a video that I highly recommend. Spend a few minutes, watch that before jumping right in. And give yourself some time for this one because it's a lot of great information. Next slide, please. We are now going to discuss, Jean and I, our fictitious business entity, Pine Hill Hot Honey, created for the purposes of today's presentation to look at what a food manufacturer may look at when they're looking to export. Next slide, please. And just a tiny bit of a background on Pine Hill Hot Honey. Yes, the honey is from Camden County, but we have partnered with our neighbors to the north, closer to Bill's neck of the woods in Hunterdon County. to partner with one of the largest chili pepper farms to bring that hot honey, that unique product to the market. So to find that unique product, we need to look at the U.S. Census, the Schedule B commodity code. So there are two different options. You can either look on the search engine or you can browse through the publication or what's also referred to as the Schedule B book. Notice that this is based on the actual product. It is not based on the industry of the company. So this is different than your NAICS code. This is going to be a code that is specific per product that you sell. So if you sell a variety of products, you need to make sure to look up your various Schedule B codes because you will absolutely have more than one. Next slide, please. So this is the view if you select the Schedule B publication or the Schedule B book, and you can click on the various chapters to get a breakdown. I do think that this view is nice because you can see how everything is organized, and you can start to find where you believe your Schedule B number should live. But I really think that the search engine is, an incredible tool. So we're going to go to that next. You just type in your keywords. So here we typed in hot honey, and I wanted to use something as specific as hot honey because sometimes it does break down to incredibly specific aspects of different commodities or different products. But here, next slide, please. This is going to break down to natural honey other because we, there's not a specific code for honey flavored with chili peppers. But there are different codes for different kinds of, just pick a commodity, whether it is let's say it's a textile, the different ways it's woven, the different materials, it gets very specific. So you'll want to look on the search tool and start general and then get a little bit more specific. But you'll see on the upper left-hand corner, there's assumed characteristics of the origin, state, and whether there's additives. And then we see here, and I blew up the table on the bottom of the left side over on the right side so we can see it a little bit more clearly. But we find our Schedule B number on the lower part of that table, the 0409000055. So once we have that number, that is going to be the key that unlocks the door of all of the data that lives on the next resource. So next slide, please. The Global Market Finder is also powered by Census data. So Census, they get the biggest shout out in today's presentation. So you can put in your code, your specific code, and you can see that this is U.S. exports of honey, natural, not elsewhere specified or included. And you can see that the top market is Canada. But what's interesting is you can see that it's grown and then gone down, whereas South Korea had gone down, but is now going back up and has doubled from 2023 to 2024. So I wanted to highlight that, and this is in values in thousands of dollars in US dollars. So for today, I did want to highlight the South Korea country commercial guide. So once you look at where are the goods going, decide, okay, which countries do I want to dive into more? We would then go to the country commercial guide, which lives on trade.gov. Next slide, please. And here is the homepage of the country commercial guides, and these are written by in-country representatives of the U.S. Department of Commerce and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and they're going to give you boots on the ground information to help protect the interests of U.S. companies abroad. And these are written by, like I said, the in-country representatives. So you are getting information from those closest to the regulations, to the business climate, and they are updated on a regular basis. Next slide, please. This is South Korea country commercial guides. This is the homepage. So you can see that, there's a menu on the left. On this particular screenshot, I wasn't able to get as much as the menu that I wanted, but you can look at different methods of entry, different regulations, top industries for and leading sectors for both U.S. exports and investment. Next slide, please. And here there is an overview on the agriculture industry in South Korea and different resources. So the second paragraph gives you a number of resources for, for U.S. exporters, U.S. ag exporters, so that you can connect and get the most accurate and up-to-date information, and gives recommended next steps, which includes having an in-person visit, as that is highly valued in this international market. And also mentions a specific international trade show that gives an opportunity for U.S. exporters to exhibit their products and services. Next slide, please. So that concludes the presentation today. We would love to answer any questions that any of the attendees have at this time. So please feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you if you have any questions. And I'm going to ask Jean and Bill to join for this Q&A round. And while folks are thinking of questions, I'm just going to remind everyone that we will be sending out the recording to our partners, who will then and the attendees. But immediately we will be sending out the slides as well as the new to export assessment questions and a link for you to schedule to meet with us to go over that self-assessment, so that we can provide even more tailored, specific resources for you to get you started on your export journey. So any questions? I think that means we answered everything in the presentation.
I don't have a question, but I want to supplement what Sophie said.
Please.
That everything that our office, the Business Action Center, provides is free of charge. So are those wonderful tools that Sophie mentioned. They are available to U.S. companies. So make your tax dollar work.
Sophie and Jean, this is Bill. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, just so you're aware.
So I'm going to end the recording. Thank you so much for those listening in.